Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and open the session with the questions, and to repeat, maybe some new people. So the way to ask the questions, two ways. One is by, I think at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there will be something, an icon marked raise hand. If you click that, then your hand will appear in my participant list, or the raised hand symbol might appear in the reactions. There's a little box, a little icon called reactions. And then if you click that, you get some options. And of course, you could put hearts in to show that you love the retreat, but for that, you could do that later. But for now, what you would click is the raised hand symbol. So that's one way to ask the question. The other way is to type it into the chat box. And somebody, one of our team members, will alert me when there are chat questions. Okay, so I see some hand symbol questions already are up. And so we begin with William Tyler. And when I call your name, then what you would do is unmute yourself. William, can you
My question is,
Okay.
does scanning always go from head to feet, or can you go the other way?
I would suggest going from head to feet. It's not, there's no sort of fixed reason for that. It's just, to me, it's more natural.
Okay, thank you.
But maybe if you want on your own, when we come to sort of the open period, you could experiment going in both directions.
Thank you.
But for now, when I'm doing the guided meditation, of course, then go from head to feet.
Yes.
And with the rapid sweep, again,
Yes.
I'm always doing it just from head to feet, but you could experiment that there's no fixed rule that it has to be in one direction.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Paul Okami.
Thank you, Bhante. I've been studying and practicing Dhamma for many years now. My primary practice has been mindfulness of breathing in general. The meditation part of it has been that. Recently, I began to feel that my concentration was growing weaker and weaker rather than stronger, until I finally realized, just to use your wonderful metaphor from yesterday, that what was actually happening was the sun had begun to really shine brightly up there in my attic.
Wait. Your voice just split in coming from two sources. Backtrack and go again.
Do you want me to turn, maybe, is this any better? Am I echoing, Bhante?
Yeah, I'm getting it from my computer. Only from my computer. It's not coming through the public system. Let me get my headphones. Yes. Okay, try speaking now.
Is this any better?
It seems it's coming from the computer, not through the headphones. Okay, let's try these. Okay.
Is this better, Bhante?
Yeah, I could hear now through the ear.
Okay, wonderful. I was just saying that it suddenly occurred to me that my concentration was not getting worse so much as that the sun, I was very impressed with that metaphor, was shining up there in my attic, and I could finally see all the dust that had been floating around there all along. This was not just in meditation, but I began to see this was happening 24 hours a day. It was very disappointing. This yap, yap, yap was basically telling me who I was and describing my reality and all of that.
Mhm.
So I try not to judge myself during meditation. I just try to return to the object, in Biko Analio's words, smilingly, and also during the day when I'm aware of it, I simply try to return to whatever it is I'm doing, focus on that. But it's just not making a dent at all. It's not lessening in intensity and so on. And I'm just wondering if the advice I give myself is just to keep practicing with faith, and that with the faith that it will help and I would be able to quiet all that down. But beyond that, I'm wondering if you could give me some advice, either from a technical practice perspective or just how to think about it.
Okay. What I would what I would say is, in periods of meditation, this is something you could experiment with. Don't take a fixed object, but just turn the attention to watch the mental process itself. And just take the standpoint of sort of the witness or the observer and turn these succession of thoughts into the objects of observation, and just watch to see what's going on in the mind. And just don't attach to the thoughts and don't sort of identify with them, but just treat them as thoughts arising and passing. And then you come into this is basically contemplation of mind, watching the arising and passing away of states of mind. See if that is helpful in reducing that. And don't worry if there is an arising of those thought formations, but just use them as a tool for getting maybe clearer insight into the impermanent and impersonal nature of the mental process.
Thank you.
Okay, but I would like to have the question sort of dealing specifically with the method that I taught this morning. So actually there are I see that there are some hands up. Okay, so this is Talbot, and you have to unmute.
Hi, Bhante. I think Majid is before me.
Say again?
Majid is before me.
It's fine. Go ahead, please.
Okay. I'm just wondering if our practice of meditation purify karma.
Yeah, first that's a theoretical question. Whereas I want to deal with more practical questions, and whether it purifies karma. I don't know, actually. I don't think it can actually purify the karma, but it was creating wholesome karma, which might weaken the effect of unwholesome karma when it matures. Yeah, but I don't really have a direct answer to that question. But the purpose of meditation, it's never expressed in the text as being to purify karma, but to weaken the grip of the kilesa, the mental defilements on the mind. Okay, so now we come to Majid.
Bhante, thank you for the wonderful teaching. This morning, when you were going over from head to toe, you had a special order that you went through. Do we need to follow that order exactly?
If anybody doesn't get that exact order, they're going to be expelled from the retreat. No, I'm only teasing. Yeah, there's nothing sacred in the order. It's just, it seems to me to be the natural order in going from the head to the feet. When you're, as we go along, you'll be practicing on your own. And if you find it's more useful to use another order, then use the other order. In fact, the real purpose of going through this, what I call the slow scan of the body, is to get familiar with the sort of bundle of sensations in the body. But once you pick up, once you're able to tune into the sensations of the body, then we're going to sort of put the scan, the slow scan, in the background, and then focus more on just directly contemplating the body in its totality, the sensations in their totality.
Thank you. I have one last question. When I was scanning this morning, I could
Wait,
feel some.
let me get this earphone in. Okay, go.
When I was going through the scanning this morning, I could feel sensation like up to my neck. From there down, I couldn't feel any sensation. Is it just lack of practice?
Yeah, I think it's requires like continued repetitive practice to tune in. You just look for whatever kind of sensation you could pick up, even if it's very weak. But as you go through it, through the body over and over, you become more sensitive to what's going on in the body.
Thank you,
So
Bhante.
don't lose hope or think that it's useless, but just, and yeah, when we come to the more open periods, what I'm going to advise, well, I'll advise that when we come to it. If I say it now, then people will start doing that rather than follow the instructions.
Thank you.
Okay, but there is a technique to apply, which I'll mention later. Okay, Ari Kube.
Sorry.
Okay.
Do you have any recommendations for practitioners who are cultivating this practice while living with chronic pain?
In fact, to tell you something, I live with chronic pain. I have a chronic pain condition. And I find that this practice is useful when you're dealing with chronic pain because it helps to turn the attention away from the pain and you sort of tune into other sensations that are going on in the body. It doesn't mean that it's going to eliminate the pain, but in a way, the pain is something of a challenge to this method because you have to tune into other sensations besides the pain. But once you get the ability to do this, it doesn't make the pain go away, but you're able to, to find other sensations going on in the body apart from the pain that one is experiencing.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, I think that there was a chat question. Okay, let's see. One flash by, okay, I have to get the chat box. Okay. Okay, here we have one question. Can we add the eyes, ears, and nose to the body's awareness sequence or other internal body parts as part of the scan? Should we ignore energetic sensations and focus purely on the body? Yeah, basically whatever you can pick up, there's no part of the body that is sort of prohibited. Yeah, in fact, but the eyes are rather subtle, but if you pick them up, then fine. There's no prohibition against that. And the nose, I was actually going to add the nose this morning, but then I decided maybe it's getting too subtle. But whatever you pick up, you're able to contemplate. The ideal is to pick up sensations as fully as possible in the body. But these would be the sensations of the body. I don't know what's meant by energetic sensations. I think the energetic sensations are really just subtle sensations going on in the body. Whatever you pick up, that you include within the contemplation. But first, let's go sort of in the sequence that I've been mentioning and that I'll review. And then you could go into, when you go on your own, then you can see what other areas bring forth sensations. Because there are sensations taking place all over the body. Usually because our attention is engaged with other things, we don't notice them. But as you go on with this practice, you could pick up very, very subtle sensations, like even the back of the ears, I found. You could pick up sensations there. Yeah, so it's a matter of just getting familiar with these sensations in the body. Okay, another chat box. This is, how should I deal with boredom during the sitting and walking meditation? Yeah, I think there's a tendency for boredom to slip into the meditation. And I think it becomes more prominent with mindfulness of breathing, because there you're doing a repetitive practice. But when we come to the contemplation of the body, the full awareness of the body, I think what can be done to break up boredom would be the, what do you call the rapid body sweeps. Yeah, I'm going to mention as we go along 4 toolkits, 4 tools that we have in this kit in practicing this meditation. So when I mention that, maybe you could experiment with these different tools and find what works to help dispel the boredom. I think that's with the sitting meditation. With the walking meditation, if you pay close attention, particularly when you put the foot on the floor, pay very close attention, it could become very, very fascinating object of observation. So you don't get bored at all. You're bored maybe because you're doing it too mechanically, just thinking with walking, picking, pushing, placing, picking, pushing, placing. But if you actually attend to what is going on in the body and using those designations just as labels to focus on the body, that should help dispel the boredom. Of course, you could see very interesting things, as I said, and particularly when you're putting the foot on the floor, and watch that very carefully. Yeah, this is actually too long. I just can't take a long question. The question has to be put shortly. Otherwise, I'll spend too much time reading the question. If you want to ask that question, if you could just succinctly summarize the question, then I'll deal with it. Okay, since there's no other question, let me take a look at this question. Yeah, actually, that the person who's asking the question, yeah, that's exactly the way you should be doing it. Maybe just suspect, I won't answer that question now, but maybe when I explain how to practice on your own, then you'll find that your question is answered. Okay, so we're going to do another sort of guided session. Let's see where we are now. Okay, 2 to 3. Okay, so we'll do some guided session. And then the afternoon, I think, though I have Bhante Mangala for that, but there I think I should explain the method for that session. Okay, so let us then take our sitting position. Okay, you could start doing a few minutes of mindfulness of breathing. Just to settle the mind on the breath. Then you move the whole body into the field of awareness. Just being aware or mindful of the body as a unified whole. In the sitting position. Okay, now we're going to go through the slow scan, the slow body scan. So start with the top of the head, looking for any sensations that you can pick up. Then we move down to the forehead, any sensations that you could pick up. And don't be looking for particular sensations, but just make the mind open and receptive and let the sensations manifest on their own. Okay, now we come to the face. So I mentioned the cheeks just as an example, but whatever you could pick up on the face can be included in the observation. If you feel your eyes, your nose, that's okay. Then the lips, including the upper lip and the underlip. Then the chin, then go to the back of the head, whatever you can feel, whatever sensations appear. Whether they're strong, weak, doesn't matter. Just be observant. Okay, then we go to the neck, the front portion of the neck. Okay, then we come to the chest. And maybe to make the sensations of the chest more prominent or easier to discern, you could focus initially on the expansion and contraction of the chest along with the breathing. So this isn't the mindfulness of breathing, but you're just using the awareness of expansion and contraction to pick up the sensations of the chest. Well, we should do the arms as well. I got the order wrong. Okay, so do the arms. And to pick up sensation in the arms, you could flex the muscle, particularly the biceps, the upper arms, the lower arms, the hands, and again from the chest, expanding and contracting, then move to the abdomen. And you should be able to feel the abdomen rising and falling or expanding and contracting with the breath. Then from the abdomen, you go down to the pubic region. Can you just observe? If you don't pick up sensations there, don't worry. Just make the mind open and receptive. Okay, then we come up to the back of the neck. And then the upper back. That area can be a bit obscure, unclear, but just go on attending. Whatever you can pick up. And move to the lower back. Then you come to the hips. And come to the buttocks. And you should be able to start from the sensation of the pressure of the buttocks against the cushion. And then let the sensation of the entire sort of muscular or fleshly component of the buttocks become manifest. Okay, now we move down the thighs, right and left. Then the lower legs, in turn from the knee to the ankle. And then from the ankle to the feet, including the toes. You could do first right, then left. And you could even wiggle the toes to get sensation, to heighten the sensation there. Okay, and then you come up to the full body awareness. Just try to take in the whole body, being mindful of the entire body. Naturally, certain areas will stand out more prominently than others, but you don't fixate on them, but just keep on returning to the idea of aware of the whole body, experiencing the whole body. Okay, now we can do a few rapid sweeps through down the body. And just sweep the mindfulness through the body, picking up whatever you can. Keep on doing this on your own over and over. We will do it about 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, we'll try to do another guided scan, slow scan of the body. If your legs are a little painful, you could shift the position. We want to be comfortable for this. Okay, start off with the top of the head. And the forehead. Face. Lips. Chin. And go to the back of the head. And the neck, front portion of the neck. Then down the shoulders. And move down the arms. Each arm in turn, from shoulder to the hand. And back up to the neck. And from there to the chest. And the abdomen. expanding and contracting sensations. Then to the pubic region. Then up to the back of the neck. And upper back. Lower back. Hips. Buttocks. Then the thighs, each in turn. Then the lower legs from the knees to the ankle, right and left. And then the feet and the toes. You could wiggle the toes if it helps. And then you come back to full awareness of the body in the sitting position. And you could do a couple of quick um, sweeps, mindful sweeps of the body. And then return to the full body awareness. Okay, now you can relax and end the session in the usual way. Now we'll have a session of the walking meditation. Oh, I see somebody has a question. What do you do with your arms and hands during walking meditation? I think there's no fixed rule. I usually put one hand over the other and keep in front of the body. Some keep the hands in the back. I don't like that myself. I guess it's no harm if you keep on the side, but you just experiment and see which you prefer. Okay, so in the walking meditation, we'll be doing, as I explained in the morning, now the 3 phases of, we call them the 3 Ps: picking up, pushing forward, placing the foot on the floor. And again, don't artificially break them up, but just walk in a slow but fairly natural way, but observing the change from phase to phase. And especially pay close attention to the sensation of when you put the foot on the floor, the changing sensations in the foot. I think for people who have problem with boredom, that will really dispel the boredom. It becomes very interesting. You could see it kind of almost like a momentary impermanence as the foot makes contact with the floor, and then different sensations in the heel of the foot or in the sole of the foot as it's against the floor. Okay, so we will do this. If you want to, also, when you get up, you could do a little bending and stretching just to stimulate the circulation, and then you can go into the walking meditation. And that will be from 3 to 3:30, up until 3:30. Then I'll hit the gong at 3:30. And if Venerable Mangala is here, I will guide the next session, which will not really be a guided session, but I'll explain to people how to undertake this practice on their own. Okay, so let us get up and do our walk. Okay, everybody can be back in their seat. Okay, now, so far I've done sessions of guided meditation with this particular method, aiming at, we call this full awareness of sitting, or contemplation of the postures with the focus on the sitting posture. So now I want this present session, you'll be practicing on your own. And I want to mention I said that there are 4 tools in the toolbox for this method. So one of the tools is the slow scan, or the gradual scan, going gradually through the parts of the body. And when you're doing this on your own, if you come to parts of the body which are obscure, not so clear, you could focus on that for a little while to see if you could pick up anything, but don't remain fixated there. If you're not picking up anything on your scan after maybe 30 seconds or so, then just move on. Because as you pick up sensations from the parts which are clearer, then your mind is becoming more sensitive, more finely tuned. So then when you can go through the next scan, you start to pick, excuse me. You start to pick up sensations in the areas which are more obscure, which are not so clear. Okay, so one tool is the gradual scan, and I suggest doing it from top to bottom, not from feet to the head. It occurred to me while we were doing the walking meditation, I'm not sure, but there could be some maybe danger in going from the feet to the head and pushing the energies up to the head, which might create some headache or something. Okay, so go from head to feet, and you could tune in to whatever areas you could pick up. You don't have to confine yourself to the areas I mentioned, but even if you pick up your ears or your nose, don't go to the extent of taking individual toes. My first toe, second toe, that will take too much time. You want to go in a more general way. Okay, so the one tool, the gradual scan. Second tool is what did I call this? The scan, the sweep, the quick sweep through the body. Just to use a simile I used in the morning, it's like you're taking a bucket of water, the way we take the bath in South Asia, and you pour the bucket of water over the head and the water drips down the body. So it's like you're using the mindfulness, but not outside, but inside, just quickly sweeping down. So you could do the whole scan or the whole sweep just in a few seconds. Yeah, sometimes I find when sweeping, I sweep quickly from the head to about the abdomen, sort of that's one breath. And then with the second breath, I push down from the abdomen to the toes, to the toes. Okay, so the second tool is the rapid sweep. The third tool is remaining in full body awareness. In a way, that's the goal. The ideal is to have the undirected awareness, just being aware of the body in its totality. Whatever sensations arise, one takes account of them, but without focusing on anything in particular. But what happens, that's the ideal, but as you sustain that, it could happen that the awareness starts to get a bit dull, the mindfulness gets a bit cloudy. In that case, you go back to the other tools, the gradual scan or the rapid sweep, until you're able to go back to the full body awareness. And then the fourth tool, if the mind starts to get scattered and distracted a lot, then you can go back to a few rounds of mindfulness, of breathing, till you recover your focus and then go back to observing the body in whichever way, either through the gradual scan, the rapid sweep, or the full body awareness. Okay, so now I've sort of held your body as you've been sort of learning to swim, and you've been learning to use your arms and legs. And now I'm going to push you into the water and learn to swim on your own. You'll be able to do it. You just experiment and see. You have to find what works for you. You have the tools, and just find out on your own how to use them. And the objective, sort of the ideal, is to get to the full body awareness so that when you're sitting, one knows, simply one knows, sitting, or experiencing the whole body. He sits experiencing the whole body. Ati kayoti va panasa sati pachupati tahoti yavadeva jnana mataya patisati mataya. There is the body. His mindfulness is set up. There is the body only for the sake of further knowledge and mindfulness. Okay, so let us then begin, and we'll continue this session until 4:15. Okay, you could end the session and relax. And I see there's a little mistake in the schedule. I just noticed that we have the session ending at 4:15, but it actually should have ended at 4:10, which is what I ended at 4:10. So we have a 20-minute tea break now from 4:10 to 4:30. During the tea break, if there are other people living in your house or dwelling who are not on the retreat, try to avoid getting involved with conversations with them and maintain the kind of inner silence. And then please be back in your seat by 4:30 when we will have the Dhamma talk. Okay, Bhante Mangala will be doing the Dhamma talk this evening. He's there, okay.
Can everyone see me all right?
Yes, Bante.
Thank you. Let's begin by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times. Oh, once at least. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Realizing that this body is as fragile as a clay pot, and fortifying this mind like a well-fortified city, fight out Mara with the sword of wisdom. Then, guarding the conquest, remain unattached. The Buddha said these words in the Dhammapada, and I'll be using them as a backdrop for what I'll be speaking on tonight. What we're doing during this retreat is truly a wonderful thing. Contemplating the body, experiencing the body has been something that's been done since the time of the Buddha. It's been done by countless monastics and lay people, though it might have been done by different names and different languages. The practices might have been slightly different, but the goal, the outcome has always been the same. To understand this body, to see it, to unmask it, letting the body just be the body. So it's something that's truly wonderful that even all these centuries, millennia, since the time of the Buddha, we're still able to gather and practice these teachings, to keep that light of Dhamma alive further. But it's also very unfortunate and sad that there's still so many in the world living now who don't even think about it. They don't want to practice mindfulness of the body. They want to just indulge, take, enjoy this body for everything that the body can do. The body is beautiful. The body is wonderful. It is a miraculous thing. But no matter how much we indulge in the body, no matter how much we feed it all kinds of wonderful food, dress it up, paint it up, exercise, go to the gym and get the most perfect body that we possibly can get, the body's nature is always going to be the same. It's come into existence, it stays, ages, and eventually passes. And it's this realization, which will be the substance of my talk. It's this realization of age, sickness, and death that provoked the Buddha's mind, or the Buddha to be. So I'd like to take this time that I have with you all and tell the story of the Buddha. How did the Buddha become the Buddha? And how did these realizations, this realization of the fragility of this form, of this body, helped him become the Buddha? So I'm sure many of you have heard many different stories of the Buddha and his life, how he became enlightened. You know, there's many scholarly books on it, children's books on it, cartoons on the story of the Buddha. But it's also very important for us to reflect on this story, to really use it as a guiding post for our own practices. Because it's a fantastic story, it's a wonderful story, it's an inspiring story. It's something that I've often thought about in my practice, and I've always liked to go back to it because his journey is not so different from ours. He was provoked by these questions of old age, sickness, death, and wanted to truly understand it, put it to an end, as we'll see. So the story begins in ancient India or ancient Nepal, depends on who you ask. But was in a kingdom. He lived with his mother and his father. They were very well to do. They were aristocratic, nobles, monarchs, something in that vein. So the Buddha to be, the young bodhisattva, lived in a life of luxury, had the best clothing, had the best foods, had the best entertainments. But within all this luxury, when he was still a young man, the thought came to him, I'm surrounded by all this luxury, all this beauty, all these wonderful things. But things change. Things age, people get sick, they die, and there's sorrow and there's defilement. There's still so much heartache and troubles in the world. Despite all these beauties, these things still go on. No matter how much I indulge in food, no matter what kind of clothes I wear, no matter what kind of music I listen to, this aging, sickness, death, and sorrow and defilement will continue to go on. So this thought shook his mind, it provoked him. Why should I indulge in all these things? Is there something more I can do? So just like us, people who come to mindfulness of the body retreats, who have taken up this Buddhist life, who have taken up this meditative life, there had to be something similar to the Buddha that made us want to take it up. This thought, this intrigue, this question. What is this birth? What is this life? What can we do to help? What can we do to lessen the impact of aging, sickness, death? So just like the Buddha, he had these questions. He wanted to know what to do. He needed some kind of direction. So this question brewed in him and it grew in him. And that's when his life's direction was born. He wanted to seek an ending of this aging, this ailing, he wanted to find the unaging, the unailing, the deathless, the sorrowless, the undefiled supreme security from bondage. He wanted to attain Nibbana, never to be reborn again in this world of aging and sickness and death and sorrow and defilement. He wanted to go the way. So he left his father's home. He left his mother, he left his father, even though they didn't want him to go. He had to go. He had to go on his journey to find Nibbana. So he kept this goal in his mind. I need to attain Nibbana. I need to seek out Nibbana. So he left all his luxuries behind, took up a robe and shaved his head and beard, and left as a mendicant, as an ascetic. So leaving all his luxuries behind, he left with nothing but the clothes on his back. And he first came across, he went and practiced with a teacher. In the time of the Buddha, there's all sorts of teachers, all different forms of ascetics, all kinds of monastics, yogis of all types. So he went to one of these practitioners, one of these ascetics, one of these mystics, whatever you want to call them. And he was wonderful. He was a great teacher, had wonderful qualities, taught the Buddha to be everything that he could teach. And the Buddha to be was a very good student. He listened to his teacher's advice, he followed his teachings, he studied, he practiced, he was able to attain high states of meditation, wonderful, blissful, powerful states of meditation, just like his teacher. He was able to do everything his teacher was able to do, was able to teach everything the teacher was able to teach. He was the perfect student. But despite how wonderful and great these meditative attainments were, they weren't what he sought out. They weren't nibbana. So he was able to sit down, meditate for many hours, and attain these amazing states. But then what? He comes out back to the life that he had before. Less now because he was a mendicant, but life still went on. He wasn't living up to what he sought out to do. So even though his teacher wanted him to stay with him, become his co-teacher, give him disciples, the Buddha to be is like, no, I still need to go on. There's more to figure out. So the Buddha to be left that teacher and went to another teacher. And the same thing happened. The teacher was wonderful, with great qualities, was able to teach the Buddha to be everything that he was able to teach him. The Buddha to be was able to attain another great meditative attainments, wonderful, peaceful, lovely, lofty. But that's all they were, wonderful meditative attainments. And that same feeling that he had with his previous teacher came to him. This is not what I sought out. This is not the Nibbana. I sit, I practice, I am able to attain these wonderful states, but they come to an end. And I'm back to just being a student as I was before. They're not Nibbana, they're not liberation. So telling this to his teacher, the teacher offered him a teaching position, becoming his head disciple, giving him all his disciples to teach. But the Buddha to be was like, no, this is not what I wanted to seek out. This is not my goal. So he left that teacher behind as well. So the Buddha goes off seeking his nibbana, his liberation, finds a beautiful place in which to sit and practice. Nice flowing stream, a village not too far to go on alms for. Beautiful place in which to practice. So he began to practice there. But unfortunately, he took up archaic practices, these very extreme, these very drastic practices. He would hold his breath in all different kinds of ways until air came out of his ears and his nose, and all kinds of horrible experiences that caused them discomfort and pain. He did them. He practiced them very sincerely. And he practiced them with mindfulness. But even though his mind was in fairly good shape, his intention was good, and he was very dedicated to it, it still didn't lead anywhere, just to discomfort and pain. So he let go of those practices and started not eating at all or barely eating, just eating little tiny things like a palm of mud or water or things like that, until his body became so emaciated, so thin, so weak. Everybody thought he was dying. You could see his ribs, you can see his spine, because his eyes were sunken into his skull. He looked like a walking corpse. Even though his intention was good, he wanted to attain liberation still. He put in effort in all these different things. He still wasn't getting to where he wanted to be. And now he's near death and still not able to attain liberation. But it's at that time, when his body was so sick and frail and on the verge of death, that a memory came to him. A thought arose in his mind from his childhood. And it's the memory of when he was very young, sitting under a rose apple tree, watching his father do his duties. He's left all alone by his companions or nurses or whatever. So he's just sitting there under the tree alone, peaceful, calm. Maybe there was a nice breeze blowing, just in nature, watching his father do his duties. And he closes his eyes. He's able to attain the first jhana, first high state of meditation that he's ever experienced, just by sitting there, just by being. No holding his breath, no abusing his body in any kind of way, just being, just experiencing his body, experiencing his breath, by just being aware of the in-breath, by being aware of the out-breath. Nothing drastic, nothing extreme, just being, experiencing. This is Kaya Nupassana, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the breathing. It's not extreme, it's not drastic, it's not neglecting the body, it's not abusing the body kind of way. It's just letting go and just feeling the body, letting the body be the body. So this thought arose in his mind, this memory arose in his mind. And then the thought came to him, is this the way? Is this the way to enlightenment? I'm doing all these other things, these harsh, archaic, abusive, and neglectful practices. And what am I getting for them? Nothing. I'm worse. I'm suffering. I'm causing pain to myself. Why would I do that? How is that the way to liberation? But by just practicing mindfulness of breathing, by having a healthy body, being fed properly, by having strength in the body, I was able to attain this state of mind. So being weak and fragile and coming to this realization, by seeing the benefits of practicing Anapanasati or Kaya Nupassana, he was given this new sense of energy, this new way to practice. So he began to eat, take care of the body, nurture the body, make it sure it's healthy so he could be able to practice again, practice till he was able to attain liberation. So he no longer abused the body, he no longer neglected the body. He nurtured it, made it a proper instrument for liberation. By taking care of the body, his mind was able to be strong as well. And it also became a proper instrument for liberation. And with that, he was able to go the distance. Everything was open to him. He was no longer being held back by these archaic practices, taking care of the body, by just relaxing, easily going into samadhi and then jhana. All the floodgates were opened. He was able to attain his liberation finally. And with that, he was able to attain liberation, came to see how beings are born, how we live these long lives through many different lives, seeing how our thoughts, words, and deeds dictate what will happen to us in our existences, but also seeing how we're able to liberate ourselves from those bounds, those things, those thoughts, words, and deeds that hold us back. We're able also to attain liberation, just as he did. And with that, that's how his Buddha Dhamma came to be. And he started teaching his disciples, and they taught disciples, and they taught disciples, and until this age where we have this Dhamma, this Kaya Nupassana, this mindfulness of the body. So it's this realization of the fragility and the transient nature of the body, this awareness of aging and sickness and death that set the Buddha out on his goal, seeing that this body is like a clay pot, that it's prone to illness, it's prone to age, it's prone to death. Like the Buddha, in the time of the Buddha, death wasn't something that was very far away. Many women, I'm sure, died in childbirth. As the story goes, the Buddha's own mother died from not long after she gave birth, when he was still just a baby. So this realization that death is not something that's so far away. We, in the mindfulness of the body, we have mindfulness of the charnel ground, the decomposition of the body, because death and decay was not something that was so far away. But people still try to ignore it. They live, particularly the wealthy. They lived in luxury, in their forts and in their palaces, wore the best kinds of clothes, wore the best kinds of jewelry, ate the best kinds of food. But many of those who lived around them, their farmers and their servants, actually they were pretty well off. But a lot of people who lived around the Buddha to be and his family, had to deal with death and sorrow and sickness really very easily. So it's this acknowledging it by not trying to hide from it, not trying to run away from it, but running towards it, to exploring this by thinking about it, by contemplating it. The Buddha, by letting it touch him and see that there is this birth, there is aging, there is sickness, there is death, that we're able to move forward, not by running away from it, not by hiding from it, not by trying to make up things to cover it up, by truly acknowledging it, just like the Buddha did, just as so many who've done that came after him did. That's how we can start to build our fort, our fortifications. Not until we fully acknowledge it that we're able to do that. So by practicing this Kaya Nupassana, that is building our fort. And like the Buddha, we don't have to do anything over the top. We don't have to do anything. He did that for us. He had to practice those things. We don't need to practice those things. But just like him sitting on the apple tree, just by sitting, stopping, letting the body be the body. By experiencing, we can see how this body is fragile, see how it's constantly in a state of change. By breathing in, that's a change. By breathing out, that is a change. The organs that are inhaling have to change. The organs that breathe out have to change. This constant changing. By sitting, experiencing full awareness of the body, all the different tinglings, all the different sensations that are coming from the body. That is change, change, change. And by doing this, by just experiencing, not commenting on them, not trying to make something up about them, by just being, that is us building our fort. We're no longer running away from death. We're no longer running away from sickness. We're no longer running away from aging. We're turning towards it, acknowledging it, by being with it, by experiencing it, seeing that this form is constantly changing. Not just this form, but all people's forms. Just as our body is in a constant state of change, so is others, those around us also follow that nature. And by practicing this, by building up these forts with the myriads of tools the Buddha gave to us, we are developing wisdom. And until we are able to attain that final liberation, we keep on practicing. We don't give up. No matter what people say, no matter what hardships we go through, no matter what life throws at us, we continue to practice. We go on. Just as the Buddha hit that brick wall when he was practicing those mortifications, we're going to have our own brick walls that we're going to run up against. All kinds of, but the body still remains the body. The activities of the body will always remain. That truth of aging, sickness, and death will always be with us. We don't see it as something negative. We don't see it as something, and though they might not be the most pleasant things in the world, and of course, sadness comes along with them, but we don't try to run away from them. We see them as something that we can work with, something that we can understand without trying to change them, without trying to make them end necessarily. Because they are what they are. This body is what it is. But our mind, the mind develops, the mind changes. That's what really grows. The body is always going to just be the body. Its nature is going to be the nature. But the minds that we have now, the minds that we first go into the practice with, will not be the mind that we leave with once we finally attain liberation. Or even maybe the mind that we first started with when we began the retreat. It's a different mind because it's spent 2 days practicing mindfulness of the body. So I think it's with that I end this talk. So thank you, everybody, and I hope this was very helpful for you. So I think it's time for question and answer. So
Yeah,
is there any questions?
if people have questions, they can use in the two ways, either using the raise hand symbol or typing into the chat box.
Okay, Geeta, you have your hand raised.
Yes, Bhante Mangala. This question, and thank you, Bhante Bodhi and Bhante Mangala, for teaching us and bearing with us. We're eternally grateful. because it's such a rare opportunity. We're most grateful. I wanted to ask Bhante Bodhi about, when we first started doing this meditation this morning, Bhante, I was falling asleep. And I had to actually get up and go wash my face with cold water. And because it's such a slow process of going through from top of your head all the way to the down to the tip of your toes and your heels. But I do this practice like every day, but not so slowly. And I do it with internal body parts more so than external. So it's like a combination of both.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, should I switch to just this one type or use the combination? The combination seems to work really well for me in my daily practice. So
I think you should save these kind of questions for the evening session. But
okay.
Now the question should be directed to Venerable Mangala based on his talk, or
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Venerable Mangala, your talk was great. Thank you so much.
Oh,
thank you.
You're very sweet, Geeta.
Thank you.
Okay, so Drake has a question. You can unmute yourself and put down your hand.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. I was curious about the mind of renunciation and the role that mindfulness of breathing and mindfulness of the body plays in diminishing craving. And specifically, it seems like when you become psychologically disturbed, then you want to escape that feeling of shame or discomfort, and then you go into behaviors of like eating and watching TV or whatever. So it's kind of like it's hard to sustain practice like through 24-hour cycles over and over without getting to the point where you just want to run away and distract yourself. So I was just curious, what was your experience as far as living in a monastic life, and how did you overcome that those strong emotions to like distract yourself?
Bhante Mangala, you're muted.
Thank you. No, it's a lifelong process. You just because you put the robe on and you shave your head doesn't mean these things automatically go away. And so it's when you take up this practice or you take up this lifestyle, you definitely become more sensitive to the drawbacks of when you're supposed to be doing something and then you do another thing. You're putting something that's, you see that, okay, hey, I, want to be distracted and I'll go do something that's distracting. But then you see the drawback to it. You see that, wow, this is not what I set out doing. Particularly when it comes to your meditation practice, you ate something, you ate too much food at lunchtime and now you're too tired and groggy from overindulging. So you can't sit properly because all you're doing is feeling heaviness in your stomach, you're feeling drowsy, you're feeling groggy. So it's by taking up this particular lifestyle where you become so much more sensitive to all those little infractions and their drawbacks, and you have that goal in front of you, you have to make your choice. Am I just going to keep on indulging in these kinds of things and not get anywhere? Then why are you still doing what you're doing? Why, how you love, you love what you're doing, but you're neglecting it. And it's something that's very fragile and something very precious. You have to choose one or the other. So you can only burn your hand, on the hot plate so many times before you stop doing it, hopefully. And then as you go along, you develop a plethora of different tools to work with that desire, that craving, that laziness, so it's all there. It's just a matter of putting them into practice and developing them and personalizing them that works for you. So yeah, it's, as I said, the Buddha gave us so many different tools for us to work with, so it's all there. It's just a matter of putting the effort into it and putting the time into it and being gentle with yourself and being patient with yourself, not to, abuse yourself, because that's just going to make things worse. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. So there is another question, but I think I'll save that for later. So Talbot has a question. Do you raise your hand so you can put it down and then unmute yourself?
Thank you, Bande. I think my question is about renunciation. Because as I was listening to, your sharing of Buddha's story, the renunciation, it's like there are catch-22s everywhere. So we're all existing based on the interdependence factors or whatever. And to renounce, we rely on our practice, and hopefully with our practice, if we continue and deepening our practice, we can gain some sort of sense of renunciation so that we can try to get out of this samsara. But then we're also constantly living, like we can't possibly like exist in a retreat all the time because we have our jobs, we have everything. So when it comes to like renunciation, when do you feel that, okay, that sense of renunciation is truly not escapism, but it's kind of like there's that gray area where it feels like I just want to get out away from it all, but yeah, because renunciation also means cutting, well, not cutting ties from your family, but it's kind of like they're important, but then yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's important to keep in mind also that in the time of the Buddha, even though he had monastic disciples, he had many lay disciples as well. So people who lived in their homes with their families. Some were very wealthy, others weren't so wealthy. So they had lives like any others, but they were still able to practice. They were still able to attain different stages of enlightenment. So, we like to think that like, in our busy days, in our modern lives with our busy days, we don't have time for practice or renunciation. But every time that you get up early in the morning, instead of sleeping in, wake up an hour earlier, set your alarm a little early, sit and do a practice, do mindfulness of breathing or whatever, practice not loving kindness meditation, all those things. That's not indulging in oversleeping, forcing yourself to get up, washing your face with cold water, brushing your teeth, and going to sit. That's all different forms of a renunciation, because you're not indulging in oversleeping. You're your energies into something that's helpful, that's positive. Or, it's little things like that, or renouncing your anger and your hatred when you don't react to somebody aggressively, to see that aggression rising in your mind, to feel the aggression rising in your body, being aware of it. I see you, anger, I see you, aggression. But instead of indulging in it, instead of feeding into it, you do its opposite. You just walk away from a situation, or you don't give into that anger. You develop its opposite. So it's all different forms of renunciation. There's not just the renunciation of family and home and putting on cool robes. It's the renunciation of the defilements, the renunciation of anger, lust, greed, jealousy, pride, and all those kinds of things. And it's when we practice the opposites of things, we're practicing the renunciation of them. Just like the Buddha's disciples, who were lay disciples, who lived with their families, had jobs and responsibilities, were still able to practice. It's just adapting renunciation to your life as a layperson. Because we can't live in, like you said, we can't live in retreats constantly. We all can't become monastics. But we do our part, our jobs, and you do your jobs as lay practitioners by practicing your particular form of renunciation. So it's just holding that spirit of not indulging, not even in extreme ways, just not giving into our defilements. Okay, so Lena has a question. Lena?
Yeah, so thank you very much for your talk. And my question is about the sickness and death. So I think for many people that death to learn that it's very far away and it's not me, it's not now. So do you have any suggestion on how we are going to prepare for this death event?
The first step is to not think of it as something that's very far away, but to see that it's something that can happen at any time. That sickness and death, they don't listen to us. They don't care what we think. They don't care what we want. They come when they want to come. If we're lucky, we will see it very far away. But it happens. It's part of it's nature. It's the nature of our body, and it's also the nature that is around us, that sickness and death. We can try to hold it off by doing everything we need to do to try to hold it away. And if we're lucky, sickness will not come to us. We might get colds, we might get the flu every year, but we survive it and we go on living. But eventually, sometime down the line, it will eventually come. So it's not to be feared, it's not to be neurotic about or paranoid about, but to just accept it as death will come, sickness will come when it's ready. Not to try to push it away, not try to hide it, not try to candy coat it, anything like that, but just acknowledging it, that life is uncertain, death is certain. Just that acknowledgement of it, that's not to constantly keep it in your mind, but always to have that awareness of it. That's a good place to start.
Okay, I think we're going to have to take maybe just like a 2-minute break to do some stretching, bending and stretching, and then we go into the chanting, the evening chanting.
Okay, Bante. So thank you everybody for your wonderful questions, and I'll be back for the chanting.
Thank you, Bhante.
For a couple of minutes, just get up, bend, stretch, whatever, and then come back to your seat in about 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Okay, who's posting the chanting tonight?
I will.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we need to go back up to the top. All the way to the top. There we go. Okay, so we begin with putting our hands in Anjali as a sign of respect for the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. If you have an image of the Buddha in front of you, that's wonderful. But if not, keep an image of the Buddha in your mind. We'll begin by bowing 3 times. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay, we'll begin with Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the Buddha. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijacharana sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro puresa dhamma sarati satta deva manusana utto bhagavati. Namo tassa samma sambuddhassa. Ye cha buddha tita cha ye cha buddha nagata pachupanna cha ye buddha aham vandami sabada. Nati me saranang anyam utto me saranang varam etena sacha vajena hotu me jaya mangalam uttamangena vandeham padapangsu varuttamam buddheyo kalito doso buddho kamatu tang mama buddhang yavanibana pariyantang saranang gacchami. Okay, homage to the Dhamma. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanaiko Pachattang Veditabo Vinyugiti. Namo Tassa Niyanika Dhammasa Ye cha dhamma tita cha ye cha dhamma nagata pachupanna cha ye dhamma aham vandami sabada. Nati me saranang anyam dhammo me saranang varam etena sacha vajena hotu me jaya mangalam uttamangena vandeham Dhamman chatividang varam Dhammeyo kalito doso Dhammo kamatutang mama. Dhammang yavanibana pariyantam saranang gacchami. Okay, homage to the Sangha. Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Nyayapatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Samichipatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Yadidam chattari purisa yugani atta purisa pugala esa bhagavato savaka sangho. Ahuneyo pahuneyo dakineyo anjali karaniyo anuttaram punya ketam lokasati. Namo tassa atta arya pugala mahasangasa yecha sangati taja yecha sanganagata pachupanna che sangha ahang vandami sabada nati me saranang anyang sangho me saranang vara etena satchavajena hotu me jaya mangala uttamangena vandeham sangam chaduveruttamam sangeyo kalito doso sango kamatu mama sangam yavani bana paryantam saranang gacchami. Homage to the three simples. Vandami chetiyam sabham sabbatani supatittitam saririka dhatu mahabodhi buddharupam sakalam sadam. Imaya dhammanu dhamma patipattiya budang pujemi. Imaya dhammanu dhamma patipattiya dhammang pujemi. Imaya dhammanu dhamma patipattiya sanghang pujemi. Okay, let's go down to Metta Sutta. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Karaniya kusalena yantang santang padang abhisamecha. Saku ujucha sujucha suvachocha samudanatimani. Santu sagocha suvarocha apakichocha sahalukavutti. Santindriyo Janitakocha Appagabbo Kulesu Anugittu Nacha Kudang Samachare Kinchi Yena Venu Pare Upagadeyum Sukino Va Kemino Hontu Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukhitata Ye Kinchi Pana Bhutati Tasavatarawa anavasesa Digava mahantava Majjimara sakanukatula Tittava eva dita Yecha dure vasanti avid Bhutava sambhave siva Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitata Na paro na paro parang kubeta nati maneta katanchi nankanchi Piaro sana patiga sanya, nyanya manya sadukamiche. Mata yata niyang putang, ayu sa ekaputang anurake. Evam pisa babutesu, manasang bhavare avarema. Mettanja sabbalokasmin, manasang bhavare avaremana. Udang adochatirihancha, asampadang averang asapatang. Titancharang nisinova, sayanova yavatas vigatamintu. Etang sating aditeya, brahmametang viharang idamahu. Titinchanu bhagam asirava, dasanena sampannam. Kame suvineya gedam, nahi jatu gabbaseyam, punareti. Etena satchavajena, sotite hotu sabada. Etena satchavajena, sabarogo vinasatu. Etena satchavajena, hotu te jayamangalam. Sabityo vivajantu, sabarogo vinasatu. Mate bhavatantarayo sukhi dikayuko bhava. Bhavatu sabba mangalam rakantu sabba devata. Sabba buddha nubhavena sada soti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalam rakantu sabba devata. Sabba dhamma nubhavena sada soti bhavantu te. Bhavatu sabba mangalam rakantu sabba devata. Sabba sangha nubhavena sada soti bhavantu te. We
There's
finish it by saying,
merits, the next page.
sharing the merits? Oh, okay. Akasata cha bhummata deva naga mahitika punyang tang anamoditva shiram rakantu sasanam. Akasata cha bhummata deva naga mahitika punyang tang anamoditva shiram rakantu desanam. Akasata cha bhummata deva naga mahitika punyang tang anamoditva chiram rakantu mam param. Now we can all say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay, so I think we are taking our break right now and we'll gather again at 7. So I'll see you all at 7.
We will do 3 bows to end the session, 3 half bows.
Three half bow to the Buddha. Bow to Bante.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bante.
Bante.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, Bante.
Okay.
Thank you, Bante Mangalam.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, everyone.
Both Bantes.
Bante.
Good night.